Hello, welcome to my get together. I'm Aleka. Today we're working on one of my favorite recipes only because it's one that I make almost every week for my family. They are my crispy baked potato wedges. I love these because you can make them for breakfast, for lunch, or for dinner, or for an appetizer, which is one of my favorite unique ways to serve company when they come over. It's unexpected, but if you serve them with some good dipping sauces like ketchup, ranch, any aiolis, or honey mustard, it's just a fun little snack to go with drinks, and everybody always loves it. So let's get started. What we're gonna need is about 8 medium-sized Yukon Gold or russet potatoes. I'm not going to be strict with the type of potato, but I do recommend either a russet or a Yukon Gold. Now, what's the difference? Yukon Golds are more buttery and fluffy than russets. Russets are gonna give you like that crispy French fry, and they're not as soft and tender inside, but it's just a personal preference, so use what you like to use. One thing when we cut our potatoes, we want to get those cool looking wedge shape, right? A wedge shape is like that triangular, thick cut type of potato. To get that wedge shape, you have to make sure first that you're cutting your wedges the right way, and it does depend on the size of your potato. So we don't want to go too big, because if our potatoes are huge, our wedges are going to be huge, and it's going to take too long to cook, and they're going to not be as tender on the inside, and they may burn on the outside. So this is about the size, if you can see the palm of my hand. I recommend when they're this big is to first slice them in half, okay, like that, and then you can slice them into quarters or thirds, depending how big the potato is itself, okay? I'm going to go, let's see, kind of just go with the flow. So I did one on the side, one cut on the top, and then I'm gonna do another one on an angle. And then you can see now we have 4, so I did quarters for those 4 wedges. So it's super simple when your potatoes are smaller. When they get bigger, it gets a little trickier. So once we cut our wedges, we're gonna add them all to a mixing bowl, and then in here is where we're gonna toss them in our olive oil seasoning and then throw them on a sheet pan. So let me finish cutting all these potatoes. Okay, now that I have all of my wedges wedged up and cut into nice, good, thick-sized wedges, but not too thick, we're going to toss in some olive oil and some seasoning. So my favorite type of seasoning usually involves salt, and you can totally eyeball this. I love using this big thing because it's easy to see the salt granules on each individual potato. You should see the salt on your potatoes. Potatoes love salt, so don't be afraid to use too much salt. A big issue when people make and cook with potatoes is they don't add enough salt and they wonder why it tastes bland. So don't be afraid of salt. You can always add some after they come out of the oven too. I'm going to add some pepper as well. For the exact measurements, you guys can check out the description below or click on the link, and it will take you to the recipe on my blog, and you can print it out there. Some onion powder I like to put on my potatoes. Of course, some garlic powder. And if you want to use freshly minced garlic, you're more than welcome to do that. I like it easy around my house, especially at dinner time. Garlic powder is so much quicker than chopping up minced garlic, but you do you, and you can add fresh garlic if you want. And then finally, I'm gonna add some olive oil. Olive oil is the only oil I usually use for these type of potato wedges. I like the flavor that it gives. It's kind of like a Greek type of potato wedge that I like to make a lot, and olive oil is our go-to oil that a lot of Greeks use. And then I forgot the oregano. So first we're gonna do some oil and just coat it liberally. If you don't use enough oil, they're not gonna crisp up the way you want. So you definitely want to put a lot of oil. Too much, don't worry about it. Not enough, you may need to add some more. And then the oregano, like I said, this is a Greek spice that we use a lot. I prefer to use it on potatoes. Sometimes I'll use some thyme or basil. You can use parsley, which I am gonna use. I'm gonna get some fresh parsley in there. So once this is in, get in there and just toss it around. Make sure everything's coated nicely. Other spices you can add are paprika, chili pepper, cayenne if you like it spicy. Okay, next we're gonna add some fresh parsley. 2 reasons why I use fresh as opposed to dried. One, the color is much brighter than dried herbs. It looks better, it pops, and the flavor is also fresh and you taste it so much more than dried herbs. I always opt for fresh when I can. So I'm gonna toss in this parsley, about a couple tablespoons, okay? And then after this is nicely coated, you can kind of take a look and see, do I need more oil or does it look pretty good? I'm gonna add just a little bit more oil, okay? Toss it, and then we're gonna throw the whole thing on a baking sheet. You can line your baking sheet if you want. I prefer to use parchment paper because it's awesome. It helps a lot of food crisp up without sticking. If you have a non-stick mat, great. Or if you're just using a non-stick pan, that's fine. Just dump it all on. There we go. Okay. Now, let's talk about the size of our pan, okay? The whole point of potato wedges is to make sure that they get nicely browned and they're crispy, right? When potatoes are touching in the oven, they're gonna steam instead of cook. So see, these bad boys are all really close together. Instead of browning on the outsides, it's gonna create moisture and cause a steaming effect. And that's not what we want if we want crispy potatoes. So if we're using more potatoes or our sheet pan is smaller, we may wanna do this in 2 batches. So I'm gonna go grab another sheet pan and spread these guys out so that we can make them super crispy. Make sure you preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So as you can see, I spread out the potatoes onto 2 baking sheets. Make sure that each potato is laying separately, not touching, and flat. We don't want our potatoes standing up like this, because if they're standing up, they're not going to be in contact with the pan and they're not gonna brown. So make sure that they're all laying nicely on one of their sides and not touching each other. Now that our potatoes are ready to go and they're seasoned and ready to bake off, we're going to place them in a 400-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes on the bottom rack. You guys, I'm a big position placement person. Say that 5 times fast. Position in the oven. If you put them on the top rack, there's certain purposes and reasons for that. The middle, usually for baking, and the bottom, not often, but I'm gonna throw these guys on the bottom so that they brown on the bottom and the heat is coming from the bottom. So what we're gonna do is brown the bottom first, and then after about 12 minutes, we're gonna change them to the top rack and broil them so that the top gets nice and brown without having to individually flip over each wedge. So let's do that. Okay. So our potatoes are out of the oven. They're looking delicious. When I saw that the bottoms were getting nice and golden brown, I brought them to the top of the oven and turned on the broiler and finished them off for a couple minutes at the very top on your broiler option. So you can see the bottoms are nice and brown and crispy. Okay. And then if you want the tops more brown, you can always leave them in a little longer. But that's exactly the color that we want to go for. Do you see the edges? Beautiful, crisp wedges. We're gonna place them on our serving bowl here. I put a little bowl in the middle to add our ketchup or ranch or whatever type of dipping sauce you like. I have a delicious white cheese sauce on my blog that would go really good with these potatoes, and I can link to them below. And in the middle, put whatever dipping sauce you guys like. Yum. I'm gonna try one for you guys, and I'm going to pick let's do a little one. So this guy is so crispy on the edge. You guys see him? We love Yukon Gold potatoes, like I said, because they're super soft and creamy inside. They're buttery, they're fluffy. There's one of my favorite potatoes, and they come smaller size, so they're really perfect for these wedges. If you guys want this full recipe, you will not regret it. Go onto my blog, the link is below. You can print out the entire recipe, save it for a rainy day, save it when you need a last minute dinner side, or if you're having company over, they will totally go crazy over these. Make sure you guys like and subscribe right here below so that you guys can get more entertaining recipes and tips straight to you from me. Enjoy. Hope you guys love this. Bye.